Mencari ku yang kita likurkan Mencantang falta kuni.
Go after, my friends. And welcome to Sports Mall. Tonight we're going to answer Hannah's question. She asks, why and how do other people make me feel bad about myself? Before we get started tonight, for those of you who haven't had a chance to like, follow, subscribe, do all the super secret handshakes with all the different platforms, please consider doing so. It helps to get us in the algorithm and helps others to find the show. And hopefully that piece of information and intellect will be just what they need to get some mental space together to where they can feel good about themselves again. Find peace, joy, harmony. As always, I want to say thank you oh so much to all my friends and family at New Reality TV. NewRealityTV.com is a new streaming channel that has a plethora of different perspectives about our spiritual journey, helping us to find peace and harmony both in our mind and in our heart. So be sure, check them out, NewRealityTV.com. You won't be disappointed. Wonderful group of individuals who want to offer some pieces of intellect to help us along our path. As always, if you haven't had a chance, stop by my website at NorseWhispers.com. There you can find how you can too submit a question, and if we make a show out of your question, we'll get you a free t-shirt. Where is it? Right there. That's a beautiful t-shirt that you can have for your very own. No shipping, no handling, no special surcharges, and no looking at me wrong funny fees. You just in the mail it goes and you get your own shirt. So be sure to ask all those questions, and if we make a show, I'll send you a shirt. For those of you who have joined us on Facebook Live has the live chat, so you're welcome to ask questions and kind of as we go along. So it is a live chat, so be sure to add your comments there. Today, Hannah is asked about how do other people make us feel bad? Well, that's a great question, Hannah, and technically they don't. I know that's going to sting, but they don't make us feel bad. We make ourselves feel bad. Or we allow the influential energies to alter our thought process about ourselves. Remember, grandfathers have always talked about the well of the self, and how way at the bottom is our intrinsic values. Well, one of our intrinsic values is the love for the self, right? Is that we really like ourselves, who we are. We may not be cosmetically, yay, or a runway model in Paris, and that's okay, because you have a gift that they don't. Your interpretation of the spiritual energies, the influential energies, the emotional energies, all of these energies coming together with your very unique, very specifically, uniquely you chemistry that's already in your body allows you to interpret all the experiences that we're having here on the planet Earth differently, just a little differently, very uniquely. And for those of us who are looking for more ways to expand our perspective of a particular experience, you are just what we need. You are that gift to provide us with that additional perspective. Help us see it from a different angle. You can do that like no one else. So you are a gift all in of yourself. Have to remember that. Ultimately, what's going to happen is somebody is going to, around us, in Hannah's question, a lot more backstory to it, but nonetheless, people speak a lot. Some people may speak a lot, but don't say a lot, if you know what I mean. But some people, when they project out energy, when we are emitting energy out into the environment, that other people are going to experience, it may be negative. Remember, in the universe, there's only one place that negative energy exists. Negative energy can only be created by, transported by, and received by the human mind. Okay, that's it. It doesn't exist naturally anywhere else. The animals don't have it, the plants don't have it, the universe doesn't have it, our gods don't have it, spirits don't have it. It's purely part of the human experience. All right? So nowhere else can this be found. So when this energy enters into our processing unit, whether it be by physical sensory input or whether it be by our spiritual brain absorbing this energy from around us, either way, as it comes into our processing, we have a choice. We have a choice. We can say, okay, that works. Okay, I'll believe it. Or we say no. No. Many people kind of think of this as more of a independent thinking, and they try to provide some negative spin to it, but that is not what this is. This is self-preservation. Okay? We're taking care of ourselves, right? And we do that by denying negative energies, not retaliating, not providing negative energies back at this person. That doesn't do any good, because all it does, remember when we talked about energy and we talked about negative energy, when negative energy comes inside of us, right? It starts that little spin cycle and it begins to erode all the energy around it within ourselves. So if we're a little being of light, which we are, and this little darkness comes in, it's going to start growing and growing and growing and growing and growing until we're like mostly negative, okay? Unless we put a stop to it. All right, we can stop it early. The best way, obviously, is to stop it before it even starts, and that is to deny it on the outside. But if somehow some of this energy is to get into our vernacular or into our processing, we have a choice that we can stop it. We have an energy source tapped into as part of our spiritual brain that provides us with the energy of a lifetime. And that, my friends, is the energy of hope. Hope conquers all. They say love does, but love is built on hope. Hope conquers all. All right? So hope is light energy. Okay? So we bring a little hope in, and other people say, oh, well, I hope that person trips and falls. Okay? That's not hope. That's you being negative. The hope energy is in the background. You can't spew it like that. Hope is not one of those things that can be just sprayed off the hip. It has to come from a place of authenticity of the self, right? So we hope our children do better in school. We hope our ancestors are healthy. We hope someone who may be ill gets better and kind of comes back to. Because we're working in a place of authenticity, we're able to pass that hope energy on. But intrinsically, we can use this energy of hope to crush this negative energy, right? We can just squash it. Because remember, the rest of us is light energy. So while the dark energy is trying to expand, the light energy is trying to crush it, right? So we just simply have to help the light energy crush the dark energy, right? We have to illuminate the darkness. Now, many times people emit negative energies for probably one of two reasons. The first reason, and probably the most, I don't want to say popular, but certainly the most frequent of them, is that they are struggling themselves. They have a low self-worth. They are struggling to see into their well of their selves. They can't see the values down there because the water is so murky. So they're trying to look into the well, but the well it just looks dark, right? They can't really see the values. So they have a very low self-value or self-worth. And so for them, in a perception, they perceive that should they kind of knock other people around them down, they don't seem so low, right? This is probably the most frequent of reasons people emit negative energy. Now, the other one that's not as frequent, but frequent nonetheless, is inadvertently. We're just not thinking about it. And what I mean by that is, I have several friends whom are, I guess if I could define them, I would say that they're toxic. They're very toxic in what they're vocalizing and how they're interacting with other people. This vocalization is emitting negative energy. Why? Because they don't know any better. And it's not until we educate them and say, oh, hey, we could do this, and what a world this would be, right? What a better world this would be. Why? Because poof, I hope authenticity, you sincerely hope that this person is able to find joy, love, peace, and elevate their self-worth, their self-value, so that they don't have this need for the perceived equalization of all these other people. So super, super, super important that we think about energies coming into us through our physical sensory input, eyes, nose, mouth, skin, ears. All of them are providing experiences that we are having to our brain. Think of our brain as a black box. And the only way into that black box is through 5 hoses. Okay? Those 5 hoses are your sensory inputs. Okay? So all of those sensory inputs. And if you have, many times what happens is some people maybe have a damaged sensory input. They're hard of hearing or lost their smell, lost taste, whatever, particularly during COVID, right? They may lose, they say, what's going to happen is the tube that was whatever merges with another one. And so we see an increased, quite frequently we see an increase in another sensory input. Why? Because those 2 tubes just join together to feed into this processor we call the brain. So when we are watching, seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching things, and it feels negative, we can choose, before we ever get into the mental processing, choose to black it out. Forget about it. Move on. Pass it up, right? Also remember that part of the experiences that you're processing, that your brain is processing right now, may not be a real experience. It may be an imagined experience. The brain and the processor here doesn't recognize the difference between physical sensory input and imagination. All right, it doesn't see a difference. So you can imagine yourself. This goes back to I think there were many studies done 80s, 90s in that time frame. Talked about visualization and how we use visualization to actually elevate maybe performance or certainly happiness and getting us out of the doldrum, beating back that depression and back that anxiety. We can use this visualization. Well, this is the brain's way of using our imagination. Okay, so we're imagining, third eye, we're going to use to now process these thoughts, these memories, and we're going to kind of stuff it through as a physical sensory input to the brain. So the brain then stores that as an experience, not realizing that we never actually did that, right? So this goes to how the brain kind of manages it. Now, remember, on the back of this black box is another black box that's kind of connected to it. Okay, so 2 black boxes, all right, and back to back. Boom, boom, boom. So the second black box is our memories. Now, the only way we can get our memories in there is through our processor, the first black box. So physical sensory input, first black box, second black box. Now it's a stored memory, right? Now, the interesting side of this is that this second black box has another outlet on the back side of it, which connects to our spiritual mind, or soul, or spirit, whatever you want to call it. I'm taught that it's the spiritual entity bonded to this physical form, so that our sensory input goes from our eye, we'll say, into the first black box. It's processed. This is the emotional interchange, where we're going to alert our heart to some kind of emotion. We're going to filter the data and manipulate the data based on the previous past, or present, sorry, and manipulate the energy so that we're getting it. And then that's processed. The hormones are released, comes into the brain does the recognition game, boom, boom, boom. Now the experience moves from the processor to the second black box with this new emotional signature attached to it, right? Which then, when we fall asleep, as an example, when we fall asleep and our consciousness slides back, touches the spiritual brain and the memories, now we have communication between these 2 boxes, and our consciousness, which is now released from our physical sensory input, is now communicating with the spiritual realm those experiences of our memories. So we're just transmitting them out to our ancestors, to the spirits around us, to the gods, to all the deities at which we recognize, and some we don't. So out it goes, and the spiritual realm kind of absorbs it or not, whichever they choose. This is why there's so much intellect in the spiritual realm. It's all out there and it's all available. It's all of the experiences of all the people who have ever lived, or not even people, all the life forms that have ever lived. So a lot of data out there. All right, so experience comes in, processed, emotion processed into memories. Memories are then connected to our spiritual brain. Our spiritual brain then connects it to the spiritual realm, where that information is then passed on. There's one more gate between the memory, the second box, and the first box. There's one gate in between those 2. And this gate I guess you could say I coined it, but I'm sure somebody else has it. In between these 2 boxes is called the me gate. Now, the me gate says it allows me the opportunity to change the energy. I can change the polarity right there, right? So if the vision I've seen processes through, goes through my emotional filters, drops the emotion, hormones reach up to my brain says, does its little comparison and says, yep, we should be sad. That energy is then passed to this gate, where I, now conscious of this, can go, no, I don't want to be sad. I want to be happy. I want to be joyful. I want to be relaxed. I want to be content. And I change the polarity at that gate before the memory is stored. Right? So when the memory is stored, I actually store it with the right emotional signature to it. Now, there's a lot of times where this pipe that you see going from our sensory input into the first box can be overrun, can be just buried, so to speak. And we do, in our everyday lives, when we live inauthentically, or in other words, we are pretentious, we're playing a role in in society and with our friendships, in relationships, in all of these things, we're playing a role. And when we play that role, and that role is not our authentic self, we're actually causing small amounts of stresses to build up into that tube, right? So we get this little bit of silt, is what I call it, that rolls along the bottom. And what happens now is we get hit with this big psychological trauma. Something really traumatic happens in our lives. And attached with all of the emotion, it goes into this pipe. Well, it's too big. It won't fit, right? And so we get what I call spillover, right? And so we spill over. And this is where you see physiological symptoms. Shaking, anxiety attacks, tremors, maybe a nervous twitch. All of those things are all caused when this trauma is overrunning our bandwidth, overrunning the tube. Okay? Now, normally in the normal flow of things, we have a little bit of headspace up here at the top. Just a little bit. And that little bit of headspace is used for cognitive processing. So if we take a big trauma and I still got a little bit of headspace, I can think about the trauma and I can break it down. I can technically function and break down the trauma to manageable levels, right? And I can deal with them, right? Whereas if everything's just full to the rim, there's no space for nothing, my brain can't process, right? I'm out of bandwidth. I mean, I can't. This is where we see things like blind rage, or if we're so saddened, or we've got so much energy tied up in sadness, or maybe even in frustration, or maybe anger, or all of these, even love for that matter. We've got so much energy bundled into it that it just overruns the cup, right? It overruns the tube, and now we have physiological symptoms. And this now turns into a biological struggle, right? So this is kind of how the thought process works. Now, the good news is the more we understand about this process, the better we can do at managing it. We know, as a fact, that we have control of that me gate. We can choose to be happy, even though we may be in a room of anger and just right? We can still choose to be happy. And that's the memory we have, right? And so what's going to happen when we switch that me gate, we switch the polarity on that me gate, what we're going to see is that chemical manipulation that we've done is going to come back around, and it's going to change our emotional filters. It's also going to change the border on our aura. This allows us to now connect with other people more easily. Okay? This is where you get people who are empathic. And empaths can kind of understand, well, it's not real rocket scientistry. They're simply looking at, in their spiritual mind, they're looking at the border of the aura. Is this addressable or is it not? And that's kind of what an empath is. It can sense the vibrations on the outside of our aura. And so that's empathy. So to answer your question, Hannah, the question is, no one can make you feel any way that you don't want to. What you have to understand, however, is that you're in charge. You get to make the decision how you feel. Now, a lot of times we have this whole kick in the pants called a level of authority that we're offering these other people. I want to fit in. I want to be part of their social circle. I want to be part of the group, whatever the case. And so I'm issuing them some level of authority in my mind. Now, I guess to quote Spider-Man, I think I'm going to twist him, with great authority comes great responsibility. When you give that authority, you have to remember that those people are working through the same things you are, right? So their self-worth may be down or up, or who knows, right? And so you simply, when you decide to use your meat gate, when you decide to deny that energy from ever entering into the process in the first place, you are doing it in a self-preservation. You are doing self-help. You are taking care of you. And that is a critical step in maintaining our mental space. That lets us appreciate magic and the beauty that is all around us all the time, right? The magic of this realm is amazing when we stop and look for it, all right? So you have it in you, Hannah. I know you can do it. Don't let those people tell you that you're worth any less than what you are, because you are worth every bit. You are as perfect can be. Remember that, all right? I promise you, you're worth it. All right, my friends, I hope that we've offered you some level of intellect that you can use in your everyday life to make things better for you. Remember, magic and connection with the spirits and the ancestors and the deities, they all come from a place right there. They come from a place of love. They come from an authentic place of love. And that's really what life is all about. And I can guarantee you, having been here now, I can tell you that being with the ancestors, being with the spirits, feeling this way, controlling how I feel and who makes me feel what, allows me the freedom to explore the spiritual realm that is all around us. So I hope you will do it too. My friends, I will see you tomorrow morning. For those of you who join me, I will be on the air again tomorrow, 7 a.m. Alaska time, for Felliness Belly Sneak. And I look forward to embracing the power of Thor. For we'll talk about not only the physical strength, but the mental strength as well. For he was a very good role model for this. So, we'll talk about him tomorrow. In the meantime, enjoy the rest of your Wootens Day. We will see you again bright and early in the morning, Alaska time. Love and light, my friends. Enjoy yourself. Remember, be kind and be forgiving of yourself. This is your first time. You're learning how to be human. Enjoy.